People of Reddit who knew celebrities before they were famous. How different do they act now? This is one of those threads I wish I could tell the serious ones and the trolls apart. Jack Black is the same person he was as a teenager. Funny, kind, caring, and spreading that joy of music. I had a friend in high school whose cousin is Kendrick Lamar. He said Kendrick's pretty much still the same guy, acts the same around friends and family, just with millions of dollars now. My best friend is cousins with Tyler Posey. She said he was a sweetheart before his Teen Wolf days, and he still is now. Tyler the Creator, exactly the same. We were all concerned at how bizarre he was. He would call people a table or something incredibly random, and the sense of humor caught on in my high school. The fame did nothing. He's still strange and a sweetheart. Family friend of mine actually dated Kurt Cobain before Ms. Love. Apparently they broke up because he wouldn't get a job, then a little while later he got famous. Can't finish the question for obvious reasons. I went to high school with Daka Montgomery. He was with a huge ego in high school, and I saw him recently when he came back to his hometown, and seems like has still with an even bigger ego now. I can't watch Stranger Things without rolling my eyes every time he comes on screen. My aunt was best friends with Madonna in high school, stayed friends until she got famous, and she turned into a completely different person in the worst way possible. I can't remember before my aunt was famous. Alex Kingston played River Song in Doctor Who, but I remember going to her wedding and meeting Matt Smith, who played the Doctor in Doctor Who, and him fixing my flip-flop. The best moment of my life ever. My aunt went to high school with Obama, and apparently he was called Barry. Otherwise he was basically the same. I had a teacher who taught Drake. Apparently he was a nice kid, but then got really douchy when he started getting famous. I played drums with Mike Portnoy in high school band, and I'm still friends with his sister, and he is still a cool guy. Who knows if these are real, but they make for great reading while on the toilet. My aunt had dinner with Keanu Reeves and other people before he did Matrix. When he came to Spain, she said that Keanu was very handsome and incredibly polite. I knew Tom Holland at the time he did that Tsunami movie. We were not really friends, but he was so funny and friendly. My brother knows the guy that Squidward was based off of. Turns out that made him more bitter cause he was made fun of. My grandfather taught Jack Nicholson in high school math class. Said he was rebellious, but wasn't too bad at math. Chris Hemsworth and his brother Liam, both really good blokes before and after they became famous. Mom knew Jeff Bezos' sister in high school. Never really knew him all that well, but she says he was well known to be a grade A dickhead. Very full of himself and huge god complex, even before he went to Princeton etc. So really not that much different from what I can tell. My brother used to play basketball with a bunch of people in high school. Among those who would sometimes join in was Pete Davidson. My brother said he got ripped on a ton and no one really liked him. But that might just be because he wasn't great at basketball. My mum knew Mel B from her high school. Apparently she always copied other people's work. My host family mom in Dublin told me Bono from U2 was a clumsy waiter at her wedding. Can't wait to listen to these replies on YouTube. Tyler Joseph was always talented. We could randomly spin the dial on the radio in the car. No, it wasn't stolen. Lol, save the jokes. And he could tell the song name, album it came out on, the artist, and the year it was released. He got it wrong maybe twice ever. Great guy in general. My 8th grade science teacher dated Bill Nye. Broke up with him because he didn't like kids. My parents went to high school with some of the family members from Duck Dynasty, and apparently they were clean shaven and had a very preppy look to them. When watching the show I just cannot picture them being preppy high schoolers, no matter how hard I try. Jason Momoa used to blow my stepsister. I shook his hand in my living room once. He was not as impressive physically then. My friend went to high school with James Charles. Apparently he was a total dickbag. My friend's sister dated Juice WRLD and were good friends with him. He was a nerd and liked superheroes and comics. This was before he got famous. Even my friend doesn't refer to him as Juice WRLD but as Jard, his first name. A family friend used to date Mike Shinoda's female roommate back in the 90s. He has a funny story of them meeting PB&J in the kitchen and Mike making jokes. He was a chill guy then and still is. Very funny. Lots of talent. Friend of mine was friends with Tom Hanks in high school and went to prom with him. He still writes her personalized day cards on one of his typewriters. A friend of mine is buddies with Paul Rudd. Says he's exactly the same and a great human. My BO teacher was friends with Rainn Wilson, Dwight from The Office. They used to grab coffee often around the time The Office started. From how she described him, Rainn seems like a pretty down-to-earth guy. I went to high school with and sat by Tana Monjo in 11th grade English. She was loud and fairly annoying then, so I'd say not much changed lol. My family went to the same health club as Obama before he was president. He was cool. I was a little kid and he swam with his daughters and me, and he played hella basketball. Pretty sure that MF could dunk. A teacher of mine went to high school with Rainn Reynolds. He didn't talk much about their relationship in class, but about 2 years ago, this teacher was among the 50 people Rainn Reynolds followed on Instagram. I know, Instagram bad, so I assume that they are still good friends. The Wolf of Wall Street actor Jordan Belfort is my friend's dad. I knew Mike Jones before his record deal. Back then hoes didn't want him. Then he became hot, and they were all on him. Was on the debate team briefly in high school with Chris Kalfa. I didn't interact with him, but my best friend was friends with him. I switched high schools cause that area was yuppie garbage, but for a while he seemed to be highly egotistical then chilled out. I dance battled the guy who is currently dating Madonna a couple times. He is an amazing battle dancer, and I lost every single time. Me and Mark Zuckerberg went to the same school for a bit. He was a really nice and very bright kid in all the top classes. We hung out a bit and became decent friends and that was about it. I don't talk to them anymore. This thread is a clusterfuck, and I love it. Not me, but I remember someone on a similar thread like this talking about how they were in the same choir as Billie Eilish, and that they described it as seeing the exact same personality copy pasted onto the celebrity mold, and that it was surreal. My mom is friends with Johnny Knoxville's cousin. She met him once and had no idea who he was. She said he was nice and funny as all hell. She didn't realize until years later she'd even met him until I showed her one of his movies. From what I gather, he's a normal dude and pretty hilarious. My dad was in a band in Glasgow in the 90s who toured with Oasis just before they blew up. He said he bought weed for Noel and Lamb and that they were just chill guys. Edit. Here's a poster for the tour. URL link. The comments really got me thinking. There seems to be a lot of actual celebrities that stayed perceptually genuine after gaining fame. Meanwhile, now I personally know a few social media influencers who seem to talk down to anyone that can't afford to live in LA. I just find it interesting. Katie Hopkins was still a. I once knew a musician named Neil Cole who was put under a lot of pressure by his record label. He became who you would now know as Neil Diamond. Not me, but I have a friend who knew Lucas Grabeel before High School Musical. Apparently, he hasn't changed a bit. I met him once, and he's a really cool dude. One of my aunts actually dated Bill Gates for a bit. I believe a few years before things took off for him. She said he was too into her or something like that at the time, and weirded her out, I guess. Sorry about the lack of detail. Kristen Ritter, Jess Pinkman's friend in Breaking Bad, went to a high school in my area. I was told by many girls she was very mean. I can't tell you how she acts now. I was at school with Liam Hemsworth. He was a few years below me, in my sister's year. Really nice guy. He was madly in love with his girlfriend, and even though he had the opportunity to cheat, he was super loyal to her. Not the brightest kid around though. As far as I know, he hasn't changed. I knew Ronnie Radke. He was super nice to me when we went to church together. My friend told me that a relative of his friend got bullied by John Lennon in secondary school, but I'm not sure whether to believe him. I have a good friend that's become a pretty well-known photographer. He's still just as chill. but I'm glad his hobby and passion had become something he's known for. I went to junior high with Norah Jones. She was the most sincere and serene person. She was fun to talk to, and she never gave a hint of who her father was. The night she won all those Grammys was very telling, that she hadn't changed a bit. Ruby Rose is a bitch. I knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy that claimed he went to high school with Axl Rose. That person said he went around and said he was gonna be a famous rock star. No one took him seriously. I don't know the credibility of this though. Raise your hand if you're British/not from the USA and have no idea who most of the people mentioned are. Well, my stepsister was a very kind and down-to-earth girl. Then she went to a modeling casting call. After that all the fame went to her head after only doing one scene. She's now living with this super rich guy, Dan Bilzerian. I know a guy that's been friends with Josh Duhamel since HS, and he's still a North Dakota boy at heart. Really laid back and nice guy. My mum went to school with Tamura Morrison long before he was Dr. Operator, and especially before anyone at r/Prequel Mums was even born. She said he was a cheeky little. Not me, but my mom actually used to go to school with Johnny Depp, would sit there and tell me about how she had the hots for him in high school, and he was pretty nice.